Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to talk about something foundational, something that can transform the way we live, the decisions we make, and the impact we have on the world around us. That is the principle of putting God at the center of our lives. To prioritize God as the foundation of your life means more than just acknowledging His existence or attending religious services occasionally. It means intentionally making Him the central focus around which everything else in your life revolves. When you build your life on God as the foundation, every aspect of who you are, your thoughts, your actions, your relationships, your goals, find stability, purpose, and meaning. Without a solid foundation, everything else can become unstable, shaky, and uncertain. But with God as your foundation, you create a life that can withstand challenges, grow stronger through adversity, and reflect a higher purpose. Many people live their lives reacting to circumstances, chasing after temporary solutions or fleeting pleasures, often without stopping to consider the base on which they build their lives. This often leads to frustration, confusion, and an ongoing sense of emptiness, because they haven't aligned their lives with something eternal and unchanging. Prioritizing God means shifting your focus from the temporary things of this world to the eternal truth and promises that God offers. It is about choosing to put Him first before anything else, before careers, money, relationships, even personal ambitions. When God is the foundation, you start to see life through a different lens. Your values begin to align with His, and your decisions take on a new depth and clarity. Instead of simply reacting to problems or making choices based solely on what seems best in the moment, you pause and ask, what would honor God in this situation? This foundational priority influences how you treat others, how you handle success and failure, and how you set your goals. This isn't about perfection or never making mistakes. Rather, it is about establishing a relationship with God that becomes the rock-solid base from which you grow and develop. When your life is built on God's principles and guidance, you have a reference point that doesn't shift with trends, opinions, or circumstances. This foundation gives you strength when life gets difficult, because you know you are anchored in something reliable and constant. Another important aspect of prioritizing God as the foundation is that it influences how you view yourself and your purpose. When you start with God at the base of your life, you recognize that you were created with intention and for a purpose. This understanding shapes your identity and self-worth, freeing you from the need to prove yourself to others or to measure your value by worldly standards. Instead, your worth is found in being a child of God, loved and accepted unconditionally. Building your life on God also means investing time and energy in spiritual growth. This includes regular prayer, meditation on Scripture, worship, and being part of a community that encourages your faith. These practices help deepen your connection to God and strengthen your foundation. Just as a house built on solid rock requires ongoing care and maintenance, so does your spiritual foundation. You need to nourish it daily to keep it strong and capable of supporting the weight of life's challenges. Prioritizing God as the foundation also brings a sense of peace and assurance that transcends circumstances. When you know that your life is built on God's promises and character, you don't have to live in fear or anxiety. You trust that no matter what happens, God is with you, working all things together for your good. This peace allows you to face trials with confidence and resilience, knowing that your foundation cannot be shaken. Moreover, when God is the foundation, it shapes how you relate to others. Your relationships are marked by love, grace, forgiveness, and humility because you reflect the character of God in your interactions. This makes your life a testimony to the power of a foundation built on divine love, drawing others toward hope and restoration. The importance of putting God first is illustrated in many timeless stories and teachings. For example, the wisdom of building a house on a rock instead of sand reminds us that the strength of our foundation determines the outcome when storms come. The same principle applies to life. When you prioritize God as your foundation, you can stand firm when difficulties arise, rather than being overwhelmed or collapsing under pressure. Living with God as the foundation also means that your goals and ambitions are filtered through a higher purpose. Instead of chasing success at any cost, you seek to align your aspirations with God's will for your life. This alignment brings fulfillment because it connects your personal growth and achievements with a larger plan that benefits not only you, but also those around you. Many people find that when they finally put God at the center of their lives, things that once seemed confusing or overwhelming become clear. Priorities fall into place, and decisions that once felt complicated become simpler because they are guided by the foundation of God's wisdom and truth. Choosing to prioritize God requires intentionality. It means waking up each day and deciding to place God first in your thoughts, your plans, and your actions. It means resisting the temptation to let other things take the central place in your heart and mind, no matter how important or urgent they seem. This choice is powerful because it transforms not only your personal life, but also the environment around you. When individuals prioritize God, families, communities, workplaces, and even nations benefit from the peace, justice, and love that flow from lives built on a strong spiritual foundation. Sometimes this process can be challenging because it requires humility and the willingness to surrender control. It asks you to trust in something bigger than yourself, to have faith that God's timing and purposes are perfect, even when they don't align with your immediate desires. But the rewards of prioritizing God as the foundation of your life far outweigh the difficulties. It is the starting point for true transformation, lasting joy, and deep fulfillment. As you reflect on your own life, consider where your foundation currently stands. What are the first things in your daily routine, your decision making, and your relationships? Are they centered on God, or are other things taking His place? Prioritizing God is a journey, sometimes a step-by-step process, but it begins with a conscious decision to let Him be the solid rock on which you build everything else. Allowing God's wisdom to guide your decisions is one of the most transformative choices you can make in life. Every day we face countless decisions, some small and seemingly insignificant, others large and faltering. The way we make these decisions shapes our path, influences our relationships, and determines our overall sense of peace and fulfillment. When God's wisdom is the guiding force behind our choices, we tap into a source of understanding and insight far beyond human reasoning. This kind of wisdom isn't just about making good decisions. It's about aligning our lives with divine purpose and eternal truth. God's wisdom is perfect, comprehensive, and timeless. Unlike human wisdom, which can be limited by experience, perspective, or emotion, God's wisdom sees the bigger picture. It understands the past, the present, and the future simultaneously. It knows the best timing, the right people to involve, and the true impact of every choice. When we invite God's wisdom into our decision-making process, we are essentially partnering with the Creator of the universe who holds all knowledge and power. One of the challenges many people face is relying solely on their own understanding or the opinions of others when making decisions. While advice and personal insight can be valuable, they are often incomplete. Human perspective can be clouded by fear, pride, impatience, or misinformation. God's wisdom cuts through all of that, offering clarity and peace even when circumstances are confusing or uncertain. Letting God's wisdom guide your decisions starts with humility. It requires acknowledging that you don't have all the answers and being willing to seek guidance beyond yourself. This means praying for discernment, studying spiritual teachings, and listening for God's voice through the stillness of your heart or the counsel of wise mentors. It means pausing before making decisions to ask, what is the wise and right choice according to God's principles, rather than rushing forward based on impulse or convenience. When you rely on God's wisdom, you develop patience and trust. You learn to wait for the right opportunities and recognize that sometimes no, or not yet, is an answer meant to protect you or prepare you for something better. This divine wisdom helps you avoid costly mistakes, prevents unnecessary pain, and directs you toward paths that lead to growth and blessing. God's wisdom also influences how you handle challenges and setbacks. Instead of reacting with frustration or fear, you can respond with faith, knowing that every trial is an opportunity to learn and grow. You begin to see obstacles not as dead ends, but as redirections or lessons designed by a loving God who wants the best for you. Another important aspect of God's wisdom is that it is always grounded in love and righteousness. Decisions guided by God's wisdom promote peace, justice, and kindness. They consider not just personal gain, but the well-being of others. When you make choices through this lens, your life becomes a testimony to the power of divine guidance, inspiring those around you to seek the same wisdom. In practical terms, letting God's wisdom guide your decisions means integrating spiritual disciplines into your everyday life. Regular prayer is crucial. It is the way you communicate with God, express your desires, and open your heart to His guidance. Reading sacred texts helps you understand God's character and principles, which form the foundation for wise living. Fellowship with a community of faith offers support, accountability, and insight from others who are also seeking to live wisely. It's also important to be sensitive to God's timing. Sometimes wisdom is not just about what to do, but when to do it. Acting too soon or too late can undermine the best intentions. God's wisdom teaches us discernment about timing, encouraging us to move forward when doors open and wait patiently when they remain closed. Many stories throughout history and Scripture illustrate the power of God's wisdom in decision-making. People who sought God's guidance often found themselves on the right path, even when it seemed difficult or unpopular. Conversely, those who ignored divine wisdom frequently faced avoidable hardships and regret. These examples remind us that wisdom is not just practical, but essential for a life of purpose and blessing. Choosing to let God's wisdom guide your decisions is an ongoing journey. It requires a daily commitment to seek God first, even in the smallest matters. Over time, this practice cultivates a mindset where your first instinct is to ask, "What would God have me do?" rather than acting on impulse or pressure. This reliance on divine wisdom also frees you from the burden of trying to control every outcome. When you trust that God's wisdom is leading you, you can release anxiety about the future and rest in the assurance that you are on the right path, even if it is not always clear. Incorporating God's wisdom into your decision-making doesn't mean life will be free of difficulties or surprises. However, it means you face them with a confidence and clarity that come from knowing you are not alone. You have the Creator's guidance, who loves you and wants what is best for your life. As you develop this habit of seeking God's wisdom, you'll find that your decisions become more aligned with your deepest values and long-term goals. You will begin to experience a peace that comes from knowing your choices are not random or purely self-driven, but part of a greater divine plan. Life is like a finely tuned instrument or a carefully constructed building. When all the essential parts work in harmony, the result is stability, beauty, and strength. But when a critical element is missing or neglected, imbalance creeps in, causing instability, confusion, and eventual breakdown. In the same way, a life without God at the center becomes unbalanced. Without the steadying presence of God as the core focus, the rest of our existence can spin out of control, leaving us feeling scattered, overwhelmed, and disconnected. When God is not at the center, people often try to find balance by relying on themselves, their own understanding, or the temporary things of the world: money, status, relationships, achievements. While these things can provide temporary satisfaction or distraction, they cannot offer the deep, lasting stability that comes from a spiritual foundation. Because these things are fleeting and unpredictable when life storms come, as they inevitably do, the foundation they rest on crumbles, leaving a person shaken and unstable. An unbalanced life can look different for everyone, but there are common signs. One might experience constant anxiety, never feeling truly at peace, no matter how much is achieved or acquired. Relationships might suffer because when God is not at the center, selfishness, fear, or insecurity often fill the void, leading to conflict, misunderstanding, or isolation. The mind may be restless, filled with doubt, confusion, or a sense of purposelessness. Even health and well-being can be affected because emotional and spiritual unrest often manifest physically. The imbalance is not always obvious at first. Sometimes it shows up subtly as dissatisfaction or restlessness. People might feel like something is missing, but cannot pinpoint what it is. Others may overcompensate by diving into work, entertainment, or other pursuits in an attempt to fill the emptiness inside. This cycle only deepens the imbalance because the root cause, the absence of God at the center, remains unaddressed. Putting God at the center brings balance because he provides a fixed point of reference, a steady anchor amidst life's changing circumstances. When God is the foundation, values become clear and priorities align properly. This helps us make decisions that are grounded, purposeful, and consistent, rather than reactive or chaotic. The focus shifts from self-centeredness to God-centeredness, which transforms how we view ourselves, others, and the world. Balance also comes through the peace that God imparts. This peace is not dependent on external conditions, but flows from an internal trust and faith in God's goodness and sovereignty. It stabilizes the heart and mind, allowing a person to remain calm and steady even in difficult situations. This calmness is a key sign of balance, a deep-rooted sense that no matter what happens, life has meaning and direction. Furthermore, God's presence at the center influences our emotions and behavior in profound ways. When God is the focus, we are more likely to respond with love, patience, and forgiveness, which promotes healthy relationships and emotional well-being. Without God, emotions can become erratic and destructive, driven by pride, fear, or bitterness. This emotional imbalance can lead to broken relationships and a fractured sense of self. Spiritually, a life without God at the center is like a ship adrift at sea without a rudder. There is no clear direction or purpose, and every wave of circumstance can toss the person around. With God at the center, however, there is a clear compass that guides decisions, habits, and attitudes. This sense of purpose is crucial for long-term balance because it gives meaning to daily routines and challenges. It's important to recognize that balance does not mean perfection or the absence of difficulties. Even people who put God first will face trials, stress, and moments of doubt. But the difference is that they have a firm foundation that keeps them grounded during those times. This foundation allows them to bounce back, grow stronger, and maintain perspective rather than falling apart. Another reason life becomes unbalanced without God at the center is that human beings are created for relationship with God, with others, and with themselves. When the relationship with God is neglected, the other relationships suffer as well. God is the source of unconditional love, acceptance, and healing, and without that source, relationships become strained or shallow. The imbalance often leads to a search for meaning in all the wrong places. People may try to fill the void with addictions, unhealthy habits, or superficial connections, hoping these will bring fulfillment. Unfortunately, these are only temporary fixes that deepen the root problem, increasing the sense of emptiness and imbalance. Restoring balance requires intentional effort to realign life around God. It means inviting God to take the central place in your heart, thoughts, and daily practices. This realignment is a process that involves reflection, repentance, and renewal. It might require letting go of habits, relationships, or priorities that pull you away from God's center. But the result is a life marked by harmony, strength, and wholeness. When God is placed at the center, everything else finds its proper place. Work becomes meaningful rather than all-consuming. Family and friendships thrive rather than become sources of stress. Personal ambitions are tempered by purpose and integrity. Even leisure and rest are enjoyed in balance rather than excess. In this balanced state, life flows with greater ease because it is built on a foundation that does not shift with every circumstance. The heart is steady, the mind clear, and the spirit peaceful. This balance impacts not only the individual, but also radiates outward, positively influencing families, communities, and workplaces. The journey toward balance begins with a conscious choice to recognize where you currently stand and to take steps to place God back at the center. This choice requires courage and faith, because it often means change and surrender. But it is the key to moving from chaos to calm, from instability to strength, and from confusion to clarity. Surrendering control and trusting God's plan is one of the most challenging yet liberating steps anyone can take in life. We are naturally wired to want to control our circumstances, to shape our futures according to our own desires and understanding. From a young age, we learn to plan, organize, and try to predict outcomes in an effort to feel secure and confident. But the truth is, life often unfolds in ways beyond our control. And the deeper peace and success come when we choose to release that need to control everything and place our trust in God's perfect plan. The idea of surrender can be intimidating because it means letting go of our own will, our familiar ways of doing things, and sometimes even the vision we have for our lives. It requires humility, a recognition that our understanding is limited and that there is a higher wisdom at work behind the scenes. This surrender is not a sign of weakness or giving up. Rather, it is an act of strength and faith. It is the realization that true power lies in trusting the one who created us and knows us intimately. When we hold tightly to control, we often experience anxiety, frustration, and disappointment because reality doesn't always match our expectations. We push and strive harder, trying to force outcomes or manipulate situations. But this usually leads to burnout and discouragement. Surrendering control is the release of that exhausting effort, choosing instead to rest in the assurance that God's plan is perfect, even when it's not immediately clear. Trusting God's plan means believing that He is working all things for good, even the things that seem painful or confusing. It's a choice to have confidence in His timing, His wisdom, and His love. This trust grows over time as we see evidence of God's faithfulness in our lives and in the lives of others. The more we surrender and trust, the more peace we experience, because we are no longer trying to carry the weight of the world alone. Surrendering control does not mean being passive or inactive. On the contrary, it means actively engaging in life with the mindset of cooperation rather than domination. It means making decisions and taking steps forward, but with an open heart ready to adapt and follow where God leads. This balance between action and surrender is key. We do our part, but we do not rely solely on our own strength or plans. Often, the hardest part of surrender is releasing our attachment to specific outcomes. We might have a clear idea of how things should be, what job we want, who we want to marry, or what success looks like. But God's plan might differ. Trust requires the willingness to let go of our expectations and embrace His purpose, even if it takes us in unexpected directions. This surrender brings freedom from fear and control-based anxiety. When we trust God's plan, we no longer live in fear of failure, rejection, or loss. We can face uncertainty with confidence because we know we are held by a loving hand. This trust transforms how we handle setbacks. Instead of despairing, we look for lessons and growth opportunities, believing that God is using every experience to shape us. Surrendering control also deepens our relationship with God. It is a daily, moment-by-moment practice of yielding our will to His, seeking His guidance in every decision and circumstance. This ongoing surrender invites God's presence into the details of our lives and strengthens our faith. Another aspect of trusting God's plan is recognizing that His timing is perfect, even if it seems delayed or different from what we want. Patience is part of the surrender process. We learn to wait without anxiety, trusting that God's delays are not denials but times of preparation or protection. This patience is difficult but rewarding because it aligns our hearts with God's rhythm rather than the world's urgency. Many people struggle with surrender because they confuse it with passivity or giving up on their dreams. But surrender is not about abandoning ambition or hope. It's about aligning those hopes with God's will. It's about being open to transformation and willing to walk the path He has laid out, which may include detours, delays, or unexpected turns. Surrendering control can also change how we interact with others. When we release the need to control outcomes or people, relationships improve because we approach others with grace, trust, and humility. We become less reactive and more patient, allowing God to work through the dynamics of our relationships. The peace that comes from trusting God's plan is a profound experience. It's not based on circumstances, but on the deep assurance that God is sovereign and loving. This peace guards our hearts and minds, helping us stay centered even when the world around us seems chaotic. In practical terms, surrendering control might mean praying for God's will above our own, intentionally releasing worries through faith, and choosing to obey God's guidance even when it challenges our preferences. It could involve stepping back from situations where we have tried to force outcomes and instead asking God to lead the way. Over time, surrender becomes a natural posture of the heart rather than a forced act. We learn to trust God more fully because we see His faithfulness and love consistently demonstrated. This trust frees us to live more joyfully and boldly, knowing we are not alone and that God's plan is unfolding perfectly even when unseen. Success is often defined in terms of wealth, status, power, or achievements. Society teaches us to measure success by how much we accumulate, how high we climb, or how many accolades we earn. While these things can be indicators of accomplishment, they are incomplete measures of true success. True success goes far beyond external markers. It is built on a spiritual foundation rooted in values, purpose, and integrity that come from a relationship with God. A spiritual foundation is the unseen framework that supports everything we do. Without it, achievements can feel hollow or fleeting because they lack lasting meaning. When success is built on material or human standards alone, it often leads to emptiness, stress, and dissatisfaction. But when the foundation is spiritual, centered on God's principles and guidance, success is transformed into something deeper, richer, and eternal. One of the key differences between worldly success and spiritually grounded success is the source of fulfillment. The world promises happiness through external things, but these often leave people feeling empty once the novelty fades. A spiritual foundation provides a deeper satisfaction because it connects us to a higher purpose and unchanging truth. This satisfaction sustains us even when circumstances change, giving us peace and joy that don't depend on what we have or what others think. True success also embraces humility and service. When God is at the center, success is not about elevating oneself above others, but about using one's gifts and achievements to bless and uplift those around us. This perspective changes the way we approach our goals. Success becomes less about personal gain and more about making a positive impact, fulfilling a divine calling, and contributing to the greater good. A spiritual foundation shapes character. Integrity, honesty, compassion, patience, and perseverance are qualities that thrive when rooted in God's principles. These qualities not only build trust and respect in relationships, but also create a sense of inner peace. People who build success on a spiritual foundation understand that their character matters as much as their accomplishments, because true success involves being as much as doing. Moreover, success built on a spiritual foundation is resilient. Life is unpredictable, and setbacks are inevitable. Those who have grounded their lives in faith and spiritual values can withstand failures and disappointments with hope and determination. Their identity is secure because it is not solely tied to external success, but anchored in God's love and purpose. Spiritual success is also about growth. It is a journey rather than a fixed destination. It involves continual learning, self-reflection, and openness to change. When God is the foundation, success is not defined by reaching a certain status and stopping, but by evolving into the person God created you to be. This ongoing growth adds depth and richness to the concept of success. Another important aspect is the impact on others. Success built on a spiritual foundation inspires and influences people in positive ways. It encourages fairness, generosity, and community. When leaders or individuals pursue goals with a spiritual mindset, they create environments where others can thrive, and collective success is possible. Building a spiritual foundation for success requires intentionality. It means daily choices to align with God's will through prayer, study, and obedience. It means evaluating what success means in light of eternal values rather than temporary applause. It also means being willing to let go of anything that contradicts spiritual truth, even if it appears beneficial in the short term. Many examples throughout history and Scripture illustrate how true success is linked to a spiritual foundation. Those who prioritized God above all else left legacies not only of achievement, but of influence, wisdom, and faithfulness that endure beyond their lifetimes. Their lives show that success without spirituality is fragile and often fleeting. True success also involves balance. It recognizes the importance of work and rest, ambition and contentment, achievement and humility. A spiritual foundation helps maintain this balance because it points to a higher purpose beyond material gain and societal approval. This balance keeps life healthy, joyful, and sustainable. The pursuit of success built on a spiritual foundation impacts how you face challenges and setbacks. Instead of despair or giving up, you learn to persevere with faith, knowing that difficulties are part of the process and can be used for growth and refinement. This resilience is a hallmark of those who build their lives on spiritual truth. Ultimately, true success is about alignment, aligning your heart, mind, and actions with God's will. When this alignment happens, success flows naturally as a byproduct of living with purpose, love, and integrity. It is not about chasing success, but about living in such a way that success finds you because you have built your life on a firm spiritual foundation. Living with God at the center of your life brings a profound sense of peace and purpose that nothing else can fully provide. It is a way of life that transforms how you see yourself, your circumstances, and the world around you. When God is the central focus, your priorities become clearer, your heart finds rest, and your actions align with a meaningful mission. This way of living impacts every area of your life, from the smallest daily decisions to the largest life goals. Peace is one of the most tangible benefits of living with God at the center. It is a peace that transcends human understanding, a calmness and assurance that remains steady even in the midst of chaos or uncertainty. This peace does not depend on external circumstances. Rather, it flows from a deep trust in God's love, wisdom, and sovereignty. When God is at the center, your mind is less cluttered with worry and fear, because you know you are held by a power greater than any challenge you face. This peace is not merely passive calm, but an active, sustaining force that enables you to face life's trials with courage and resilience. It frees you from being controlled by anxiety or despair and gives you a firm foundation to stand on regardless of what comes your way. This is the kind of peace that helps you sleep well at night, make clear decisions, and respond to difficulties with grace and strength. Purpose is the other key fruit of living with God at the center. Purpose gives life direction and meaning. It helps you understand why you are here and what you are meant to accomplish. Without purpose, life can feel aimless or empty, no matter what you achieve. But when God is central, your purpose is connected to His divine plan, a plan that is good, loving, and far-reaching. This connection gives your life a sense of significance that goes beyond personal gain or societal expectations. Knowing your purpose rooted in God's design motivates you to persevere through challenges and to make choices that align with eternal values rather than temporary pleasures. It keeps you focused on what truly matters, helping you avoid distractions and detours that lead to frustration or regret. Living with purpose grounded in God's center transforms everyday activities into acts of worship and service, imbuing even the mundane with meaning. When God is at the center, relationships also flourish because your interactions are guided by love, forgiveness, and compassion. This creates a foundation for healthy, lasting connections that enrich your life and the lives of those around you. The love that flows from a God-centered life is not selfish or conditional, but selfless and enduring, reflecting the character of God Himself. Living with God at the center encourages a mindset of gratitude and humility. It reminds you that your abilities, achievements, and blessings are gifts to be stewarded rather than trophies to boast about. This perspective fosters contentment and joy, even when life does not go as planned. Gratitude shifts your focus from what is lacking to what is abundant, increasing your overall sense of well-being and happiness. Another important aspect of living with God at the center is guidance. When God is your compass, you have a clear sense of direction in decision-making and goal setting. This guidance is a steady light that helps you navigate complexities and uncertainties with confidence. It prevents you from drifting aimlessly or making choices that lead away from your true path. Living centered on God also invites ongoing growth and transformation. It is not a static state, but a dynamic journey of becoming more like the person God created you to be. This journey involves continual learning, repentance, and renewal. Each step brings greater clarity, strength, and alignment with God's purposes. Furthermore, this way of life impacts your view of success and failure. With God at the center, success is measured not just by external achievements, but by faithfulness, character, and love. Failure is seen not as the end, but as an opportunity for growth and reliance on God's grace. This perspective frees you from the fear of failure and encourages boldness in pursuing your calling. Living with God at the center ultimately shapes your legacy. It influences not only your own life, but also the lives of future generations. When your life is grounded in God's love and truth, you leave a lasting impact that reflects His goodness and power. Your influence becomes a beacon of hope and inspiration for others to also put God first. This way of life requires intentional choices daily. It means setting priorities that honor God, making time for prayer and reflection, and cultivating habits that nurture your spiritual health. It also means being willing to realign your life whenever you drift away from God's center, recognizing that His love and grace are always available to welcome you back. Living with God at the center is the key to unlocking a life of deep peace and enduring purpose. It transforms ordinary existence into a meaningful adventure filled with hope, joy, and impact. To conclude, putting God at the center of our lives is not just a choice. It is the foundation for everything that truly matters. When we place Him first, we find balance in chaos, peace in turmoil, and purpose in every step we take. Without God, our efforts are unstable and our achievements hollow. But with Him at the core, our lives become anchored in truth, strength, and everlasting hope. Let this be the moment you decide to surrender control, trust His plan, and build your life on the unshakable rock of faith. Because when God is first, everything else falls perfectly into place.